everyone wants them leeches out of the club. It has to come from the heart, it has to come from passion, because talking to them, as we found out, for 20 odd years now, won't reach anything. So we have to find another way.
Nearly 2 decades of neglect and idle ownership continue to wreak havoc on Manchester United ahead of the 1958 planned protest before Arsenal. We're speaking about the necessity to restore fan culture and the importance of a collective vision in moving forward. We're also dissecting the draw against Real Sociedad and what to expect against Arsenal. That and much more on your Theatre of Red. It is advantage Manchester United as Ruben Amorim's men left Spain with a draw ahead of a planned protest before Sunday's arrival of second-placed Arsenal in the Premier League. Typically, there is much to digest in the world of the 20-time champions, and spending some time with me this week is a lifelong Red, a regular face in the stands, and an all-round nice guy. It is Mr. Ivan Dzhumadzhuk. How are you doing, my friend?
I'm very good, Shaun. Thanks for having me. That was really good with the way you pronounced my surname, probably the best I've heard in my life.
Well, I've already won, so regardless of what happens for the remainder of this conversation, we've started on a good... It is the day after another trip to Spain, and a 1-1 draw against Real Sociedad in the Europa League has set the tone for a return leg in Old Trafford in the round of 16 on Thursday. Now, on a day when Ruben Amorim's men continue to generate a plethora of negative headlines and damning reports, United did look the better side for 70 to 75 minutes, and in all honesty, were desperately unlucky to concede a penalty. That was ironically Sociedad's first shot on target. Inevitably, that provided a well-needed jolt for the home support, and that in turn led to a final charge from the home side, with Andre Onana earning a badly needed highlight at the end of the game. Just like their victory in Old Trafford in 22, the La Liga outfit needed a penalty to get on board, and believe it or not, they have never scored from open play in 7 meetings with Manchester United. So, before we dissect some individual performances and talking points, what was your take on the fixture and the performance from the side overall, Ivan?
I'm just sick of them having penalties against us randomly. Last 4 games, they had 3 penalties. It's not funny, but I've not seen them as much this year. I've read about them before the game, and I thought they'd be better than they actually were. And I've seen something today that they've scored less goals and less than Ipswich in the league, and they've got 6th lowest amount of shots in La Liga. So I thought we did well. I've actually put in the group chat saying, for the amount of chances we don't create, we don't actually concede that many, as was the case with Ten Hag, which is a great thing. But then seeing that it's probably Sociedad just being shit and not creating, not being able to create, and not us being better, that's a damning thing. But then at least we've got the results. At least we've got not a chance. I mean, we're going home and probably stronger away than we are at home. But you look at all the other teams, FCSB, who we beat comfortably. They had a good result against Lyon, who you would have thought Lyon is a much bigger club and they're better. So it's just that competition where everyone is shit. Spurs struggling against Aze, even though Spurs probably got better players. So I don't know what to make of it. We need it. We badly need it. So we are where we need to be, or where we deserve to be in this competition. Yeah, it's just second best competition in Europe, and that's who we are at the moment, unfortunately.
It's like one of those things where you can only play what's put in front of you. All things considered, we're still unbeaten in the Europa League this year.
Yeah,
I mean, United as an overall should be undefeated in Europe, but this Manchester United side obviously has got ample issues. So to be able to go through any competition undefeated and to go to Spain.
A good record in Spain in general, playing away. So it's great. I mean, it's great that we got results. But the first 45, I mean, till that Bruno chance and then Xerxes backheel that when we had like 3 or 4 shots in one attack, it was pretty dire. And it was, if it was 10, 15 years ago, you think, right, we went away, we got a draw, taking it to Old Trafford. We just have to do our thing now. But here, when you see how bad they were, and they're here for the taking, it's just we just can't do it, can we?
I understand that. I do look at it from that perspective because a real efficient Manchester United side should have this tie won already. Do you know, the return leg to Manchester should not matter. But amidst the backdrop of a very large partisan Bass supporting cast. It was a relatively comfortable first half United, one where Onana didn't have to do anything other than contribute in various build-up phases. One thing that I want to start with here, because this, I think, is going to be the fulcrum of what Amram is trying to achieve with his system and his structure. We saw an extremely relaxed back three of Lenny Yoro, Matthias de Ligt and Nasser Mazraoui looking very sharp together. And Theatre of Red writer Jerry Kelleher suggested that Amram may just have stumbled across his strongest trio at this moment in time, referencing them majestically, I must say, as a formidable triumvirate. And hats off to the Corkman for that one. That's fantastic. But when you consider Lisandro Martinez's injury, it's one of the most sickening things that could have happened to this squad and to the manager, because his importance was growing to be able to have a defender that can play out from the back with such unique passing ability. But with what you witnessed last night, are you on Team Jerry in thinking that this is a trio that could do well against Arsenal on Sunday?
I think we don't have a choice, do we? I think this is the only trio we can have. He clearly doesn't think the youngsters are ready. People say, oh, he doesn't trust them. I think he does. He's clever enough to see the player and assess them. So we don't have the youngsters who can come in. Whether Harry comes back fit or half fit, I don't think he's better than any of them three. I was a bit not frustrated, but surprised that he wasn't Yoro on the left and then Mazraoui in the right centre back position, because I thought Yoro did well last few times he went and he played on the left. But then, yeah, as you say, they looked well, three of them. Obviously, they've got Lindelof who can come in, but can is the word. He shouldn't come in. He only can come in, especially after what he did against Fulham. So I think the starting 11 picks itself up based on availability of players, unless Ugarte comes back in. But this is probably the starting 11 we'll be seeing for a very long time till the end of the season, unless Mason comes back in, Luke Shaw comes back, Kobe comes back. But otherwise, this is what we stack with.
Obviously, selection issues are there, and you can only pick who you have available. I was more so looking at the fact that as a trio, not necessarily there because of a necessity, because as you said, you've got Lindelof, you've got Aidan Heaven also there as available option too. As a collective, from what you saw, do you think that they're a side that can take that into Arsenal and give a similarly confident performance against a good Premier League outfit?
But I know what you mean. I just think you can look at them as a three, because you still got Dorgo can't play. He still cannot play, and then you've got Dalot on one side. And it's just too disjointed. And as a three, I really like each player individually. I like them in a system against opposition like Sociedad, yes, but Arsenal's a different kettle of fish, and it's like I think we've got loads of individually good players, and it's just they crumble under the pressure. So if Arsenal puts pressure on us, I don't know if they can handle it. That's what I think. That's why I had to go into the bigger depths of the whole team, because as a three individually, all of them, each of the players is really good. I like De Ligt, even though people say he's not been the best. I really liked him when he was Ajax, and I really liked him at Bayern Munich. Didn't watch him as much in Juventus. I really like Lenny Yoro. Real Madrid wouldn't be trying to buy him in the summer at 18 if he wasn't great. And I really like Mazraoui. But then it's whether they can handle the pressure of what Arsenal is going to bring to us is going to be much, much more stellar test than it was yesterday. So I hope they can, because you have to hope, but I hope they can.
Yeah, I understand the apprehension, and I share the sentiment about Matthias de Ligt. I think he's coming under an awful lot of slack. I'm not saying he's been perfect, but just a very, very good player there. But one thing that you did say, and it is one potential stumbling block in this backline, it is a growing concern regarding Diogo Dalot and his continuation of more than a little worrying performances. And to be clear before I continue, I was one of the more vocal supporters of Dalot throughout late 22, into 23 and early 24. And I regularly offered support for the Portuguese fullback because I saw past a few poor performances and I chose to focus on the potential and the desire that he clearly maintains. Inevitably, he went on and he won the Players' Player of the Year last season. However, his decline in this new look system is something that cannot be ignored. And his performance yesterday evening was extremely worrying, particularly when you focus specifically on his decision-making and his refusal to supply Rasmus Højlund with a simple tap-in after 20 minutes. And that changes the entire dynamic of the game. I do believe that his being used out of position more often than not has contributed to maybe a lack of confidence. But that does not excuse the routine errors that we're seeing on a weekly basis. Where do you stand on Dalot? And is it now a primary objective to bring in somebody in the ilk of Giovanni Guenda in the summer?
How long have we got, you said? Because you've opened a massive can of worms. I don't think I've ever seen a player in the United shirt that I disliked more than I disliked Diogo Dalot. I don't know if you want to go like further with it. I will give you one thing. Next time, and listeners, if they want, I mean, don't take my opinion. It's a gospel. Everyone's got an opinion. Mine doesn't need to be right. But every time, watch Dalot next time you watch the game, and watch what he does after he passes the ball. Watch his body language. It's never on the front foot. So I want to be a coach eventually. I'm going towards it. Paul McGuinness, obviously ex-Man United academy coach, he puts some brilliant stuff on Twitter, X. And he always says about front foot passing. Diogo Dalot never does it. It's not about passing forward. It's passing and moving straight away in the singular movement. Watch him it's as if he's playing 5-a-side, just an 11-a-side pitch. He's never switched on. He does bare minimum, and he thinks that enough. So that's why I think there's that perception. And then obviously he bumps his chest, and I think that's all a gimmick. I said it last week. I was watching the academy lads at Arsenal, and I said it to my mate there. I said, he's a gimmick footballer. He makes you believe there is more than there is. And there probably a talent there because he's playing for the biggest club in England. But I think he's epitome of why United, where we are in the last few years. He makes you believe that he's a good player, but he's not. He doesn't try hard enough. He tried to make you persuade you into thinking, reassure you that he actually does. I don't want to go anywhere near Diogo Dalot. Come and say anywhere further because he just frustrates me so much watching him. Just the body language is just wrong.
You're mirroring the sentiment of the vast majority of the fan base. And as I said, I went through a period. I was trying to do what I do with every single coach and every player that plays at the football club, that I try to give them the benefit of the doubt, you know. Mm-hmm. I've always sort of embodied this mentality that it's Manchester United against everybody else. When you look at it from the outside, paper never refuses ink. Manchester United will never be denied a click on social media. So the world's media and every rival supporter spends their days downing Manchester United and damning players, damning decisions, damning coaches. So I always try to take this perception that we should support our own. And that's not dislodging what you're saying now, because I'm openly admitting that what we're seeing, especially under Ruben Amorim, is so far from what we would expect, especially, as you said yourself, you're going towards coaching. So we're in a dynamic in 2025 when so much of the integral part of modern football relies on fullbacks, whether it's in the final third or whether it's in defence. They have to be absolutely spot on either transition. So often Dalot is left wanting, and it's something that's really jeopardising this team, jeopardising the system. I don't think Amorim is playing him because of this whole he's his compatriot, and I think he's playing him quite simply, Ivan, because he's got nobody else to play there at this moment in time. And that's when I reference the one stumbling block in the defence. I think Mazraoui is probably the player that needs to go out there. And I'm not saying that Mazraoui is going to be offering a real advantage for this system, because ultimately what we've seen has been really successful in Amorim's teams is when he's utilising wingers in this fullback role, particularly when Ahmad was there. But something needs to be done with Dalot, because the likes of yourself and the vast majority of the supporter base have just had enough.
I think, you know, that saying about the one rotten apple can set the rot for everyone else. I think I don't want to blame everything on Dalot again. I don't, but that's what I don't know if people seen that clip of Roy Keane last week on the overlap, and he's saying about closing down, and he stood about 5 yards in front of Ian Wright, and he's like, "Well, I am closing you down, but I'm actually closing you down. I'm just pretending." And I think that's what Dalot is. He's just like, he's pretending to do the right thing, but he doesn't he doesn't do it with any conviction. So if you put someone there who's not maybe as good as on the ball or physically or even have as much talent, but tries hard and does the overlaps. Like there was a moment yesterday, about 35, 36 minutes in, where he passed it either to Holland or Garnacho and they drove. And then that just them two together against the back four, and there was massive gap on that right-hand side where Dalit, after he passed it, he just stopped. He just passed it and just stopped instead of trying to overlap. And it wasn't like a high-speed counter-attack. It was just, I can't remember if Rasmus or Garnacho or Alejandro picked up the ball and just turned and run. It wasn't even like a massive drive, it was just a run. And Dalit just stayed on the halfway line and we lost the ball eventually. So it's just I agree with you that, and I hope that Amorim doesn't play him just because he's Portuguese and he's not going to keep him just because he's Portuguese, but it's more like he doesn't get injured. But that's another reason. He doesn't get injured because he never does anything at maximum. That I think. So I don't know what you think about it, but yeah, I hope to death it's not just, oh, he's Portuguese, he speaks the same language and he can transpire my ideas as well, because he doesn't. If this is that, I don't think this is Amorim's ideas anyway.
All of these reports with Giovanni Quinda from Sporting, they are real. He is a player that United are actively pursuing. So
he's very exciting, isn't he?
Extremely exciting. He's young, like he is raw, and this is something that the fan base need to realise. He is playing amongst a group of pretty elite footballers in terms of a domestic front. He is raw, he will make mistakes, he will frustrate, but he is a very talented footballer. And the biggest thing with him, Ivan, is he's very athletic, he's very physical, and he matches an awful lot of the profile of what you're seeing with Patrick Dorgu. The prospect of having those guys on the wings, and also with the capabilities to be able to interchange as well mid-game, you know, having versatility like that is an absolute standout. Another player I want to speak about, because Dallow's not the only one who's splitting the fan base, is Alejandro Garnacho. And Garnacho supplied the pass for Joshua Zirkzee to fire home from outside the area in a performance that returned 11 completed passes from 11 attempts, and 2 of them were registered as key passes, but he attempted 0 crosses and took 5 efforts on goal with 2 on target. Now, inevitably, his substitution led to further signs of a visibly frustrated youngster leaving the field, really highlighting that kind of petulance that we see, and there was ample attempts to highlight his discontent in the dugout afterwards. He is regularly lamented for his inability to pass the football and focus on, I suppose, the creation of opportunities for himself, alongside a perceived mentality issue that can often spill over onto social media with some juvenile retweets that he really should be distancing himself from. Do you think this is par for the course for what many people forget as a 20-year-old player? Or is there a wider conversation to be had, one that could inevitably see him depart for Napoli in the summer?
I don't know if I would ship him to Napoli. I think there'll be another case of player going somewhere to a better environment, doing much better than he did here, and then people saying, "Oh, we should have never sold him because he's doing better there." In a different league, I'm not saying it's easier or weaker. It's a different league, but it's a much stronger environment and it's less pressure. And I think there is a player there. But as you said, he's a 20-year-old who got, I think, a bit of ahead of himself. And I think he's thinking a bit too much of himself. Don't know whether that's his family telling him that. I wouldn't think so. It's just, but I'm 28 now. I'm not 20. I think 20-year-olds are spending so much time on social media now, and footballers especially, and all the comparisons with Ronaldo. I mean, he was wearing Ronaldo's original boots, the same ones Cristiano had when he arrived to United. He was wearing them yesterday, and he was wearing them at training. I don't know if they're custom made or it's just a limited edition one for Alejandro. I think it's gone a bit too far, the comparisons. Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think Ronaldo was compared with Giggs when he arrived. He's just been let to be whoever. Obviously, social media didn't exist then, but he was just Cristiano Ronaldo, and that's it. And I think Alejandro Garnacho needs to be just Alejandro Garnacho and concentrate on working harder for himself and for the team. And I think that passing thing where he creates chances for himself and not for everyone else, it is a mentality. He needs someone like a leader who would tell him, and he would respect and maybe even fear, and he would tell him, listen, stop taking the piss here. You creating chance for yourself for not scoring, hindering the team. So if someone is Højlund in a better position, pass the ball to him and not and not try to stat pad literally and get the numbers, because obviously in 10 years' time, people will be looking at the stats. Probably won't, but if they look at the stats of this season, they'll think, "Oh, Garnacho got this amount of assists, but the assist to Xerxes yesterday, was it difficult? No, it was just square ball. That was it." But yeah, he needs to work on his decision making.
This is a footballer who absolutely excelled at an academy level. Now, you said that you were watching United's academy against Arsenal. Garnacho stole all the headlines in that FA Youth Cup run, and his performances were fantastic. He was scintillating in attack, scored some tremendous goals. But what so many people didn't realise, and it was something that I reported on the time, is that there was a certain Kobbie Mainoo in the centre of that team, and he was pulling the strings in defence and in attack, and he was getting overlooked on a weekly basis for the bravado and the charisma of Alejandro Garnacho. And I was very quick to remind people that, yes, Garnacho's amazing. Yes, he is a player, has talent to achieve whatever he wants as long as he has a good head on his shoulders. But as you get into that first team environment, more often than not, you're seeing a situation where sometimes his impact is better felt off the bench. And there's nothing wrong with that. You know, one thing that stands out to me actually when we're saying this, Ivan, when Mason Mount was given the number 7 shirt, do you remember the outrage that flew across social media because Garnacho was not the one who was handed the number 7 shirt?
Oh yeah.
You know, and I was coming out and I was just trying to reason with individuals. I said, this is a teenager. It's a teenager who is still trying to find his feet in the professional game. I know people want to make an initial comparison with Cristiano Ronaldo. You can look at Garnacho and you can say, this fella, he's got Real Madrid written all over him. It's one thing to have physical ability, technical ability. It's another thing if you don't have a good head on your shoulders. And we've seen it with so many footballers throughout the years. A very, very dangerous scenario. And particularly when you're looking at potential petulance, coupled with the fact that the club is trying to fight off the clause of profit and sustainability rules and financial fair play, when you have an asset within your club that will act as pure profit, sometimes that will pay dividends, and that is what will pay trumps over a weekly issue that is not getting on board with what you're saying, and that's creating a harmonious team environment and instead creating problems. I hope he can focus on improvement and focus on the betterment of the team. It's just there's something that has been knocking at me for several months, and it's not a will for him to not to succeed. It's heading towards one direction with him. I think the allure of pure profit is going to be too hard for the club to ignore.
Yeah, I agree. That's why I think, we're just in this vicious cycle, aren't we, that people not performing. There is a talent there. For whatever reason, they're not performing. We're selling them, and then they excel somewhere else where the pressure's less, and the environment is better, because United is probably the most toxic environment in world football at the moment. There were there were various clubs in the last decade where the toxicity was very, very big around the club, but there is not a club in the world football now. And there needs to be someone to take reins of every little detail of the club, and who's they're going to be is impossible to predict. And I think it's for the benefit of the players and for the benefit of the club as a whole. Hopefully, Ruben is that person, but then he needs to be given the tools and the trust from the board and from the decision makers to be the ultimate judge of everything. Literally every single detail. I think this club can only operate in that way. Obviously, I don't want to compare with Sir Alex, but there is a reason why he was the last successful manager here, because he was the boss. And I think this club can only operate, the size of it only allows it to operate in that way. And we're trying to copy the structures of other clubs, but the clubs are not, they're incomparable. So again, Jason Wilcox and Omar Barad, I don't know what kind of work, like, you can't judge their work based on whatever happened, because it's a long-term project, and the Brailsford and many others. But this club is not like no other. You need one big boss who's pulling the shots, and who's probably the most talented boss in the world as well, which doesn't make it easy. And I think we start from Garnacho, but this is the thing, they're going to benefit every single player. And I think there is a lot of talented players with good mentalities. It's just uncovering what triggers them. And someone they're not gonna go against, and they're just gonna put the head down, be honest with themselves and with their teammates, and work hard. Whether that's person in the squad or upstairs, you need multiple of them, I guess. But you need the ultimate one up top. Whoever's that going to be, I don't know.
Yeah, you make a perfect point. It's a difficult time for any youngster to be at the football club because the culture is so toxic. And that'll bring us on to the 1958's planned protest ahead of Arsenal on Sunday. Now, this protest is targeted at the Glazer family, the club's deliberate assault on fan culture, and it's set to begin at the tollgate at 3 p.m. Now, regular listeners to this show are well aware of my discontent for the idle ownership and their complete lack of consideration for the working class roots of this football club. Manchester United as an institution is the definition of a worldwide phenomenon that has long pulled the heartstrings of millions of supporters. Now, some are lucky enough to get to the ground and to watch their heroes play on a weekly basis. Others support avidly in their homes and also in collective gatherings at sometimes obscene hours of the morning. It brings to question what the club truly means for individuals. And it also brings me to a notable piece of work that you created in September of last year. Because your aim, Ivan, with that was to bring together a variety of Reds in an attempt of, let's say, defining the importance of the football club for each individual and what it means to you specifically after a 20-year affair with the club. I believe it's a truly fitting topic to bring to light ahead of Sunday, particularly now that this has forged you as a person and brought you to where you are in 2025. For those unaware, we will do our best to make this short video hum, but can you tell the listeners your story and how you became infatuated with something that idle ownerships are attempting to steal?
Thank you, Shaun. It's I don't want to go off the radar for too long. It's 20 years of life, obviously, and I am very critical of United right now, only because of how much it means for me. I told you before, listeners won't know it, but I'm Ukrainian. No one of my family is a football fan. The reason I started playing football was because my cousin used to play FIFA 05 career mode, and I would just sit next to him and watch him play. He wouldn't let me. He was older one. And then one of them nights where he wouldn't let me play, I went and watched a telly, and I've seen Rooney. And I went to my mum and I said, why am I on the telly? Because I thought it looks like him. She's like, you're not on the telly, silly. I was like, yeah, it's me. And she was like, no, you prettier than him. But since then, that was the start of my affair. So I found out everything about Wayne Rooney. It was a game against West Ham at Upton Park, and with the blue kit. I think I always thought it was 0-0, and then I found out recently I think we won 1-0. I think Park scored. But yeah, since then it was always that, and I didn't have many role models. Definitely didn't shape my life on my dad, even though he's not a bad man, but it didn't do that through kind of like this. And my dream was to go and watch United initially, play for United initially, and then when that didn't happen, it was go and watch them and live in England. I've learned the accent by watching, as funny as it is, by watching United games and films about United. And just, I remember the first bit I've ever learned was how people in Manchester pronounce United, because I was always United with a Ukrainian Russian accent, and it's United, and that's what the first words I've learned. And since then, it took me, I couldn't get a visa for a long time to get to the UK. So I started going on the European aways. First year was when we won the Europa with Jose. It never got as good afterwards, obviously, with European aways. But people often say that 90 minutes of football just get in the way of a good trip. And some of the people I've met, I know, yes, obviously everyone got friends who are United fans who've been going. You've been going since '91, as you told me. There's some people who's been going from 60s and 50s. I've met someone who's been to every, not every game, but he's been going from 37. Unfortunately, he passed away a few years ago. And it's just, for me as a Ukrainian kid at that time, just meeting all those personalities and hearing all those stories about the club that I loved was just absolutely dream come true, genuinely. I'm smiling now, you can't be seen, but I'm smiling from ear to ear. And everything I've learned was by listening to Ferguson and the players, and because the mentality in Ukraine is very different from mentality in the Western world, and the resilience and hard work and discipline, and the famous quotes of Ferguson where hard work beats talent. If talent doesn't work hard enough, I had to take it all on board, and that's how I try to live my life now. And yeah, so to go back to the video, I've applied for a job with United, and I've been searching for opportunities in football for a long time now, about 18 months. And this job came up, and I was like, I have to make the most of it, even if I'm not going to get it because I genuinely don't have the experience on paper for it. I will make the best piece of work I can make, and I'll try to enjoy that experience. So I live in Newcastle now, and I've hopped on the train 2.5 hours, and I was outside of Trafford. I messaged the friends who I go to watch the games at Old Trafford with, and I said, can you please do a video describing what is United for you in one word? And so I filmed around Old Trafford. I tried to get the bit, and I had the idea, but I didn't have the whole image, and I just tried to film as much as possible. And people came up with words like family, passion, someone said famous United, and in the end, it just pans out to me where I say that United is my life, because that's genuinely the thing that, not the thing, but the phenomenon. I don't even know how to explain it. Is what shaped my life from being a 9-year-old kid in the living room in Ukraine to 28-year-old in the living room in Newcastle. It was out United. The experience I've lived would have never happened, 100%. So it pains me even more to see the way the shape the club is in now.
When you're mentioning words like passion, family, and that for you, Ivan, it's your entire life, and it has literally forged you and turned you into the individual that you are today. When we see the 58 gathering such a collection of individuals that are going to be marching on Old Trafford to try to reclaim some form of fan culture and the working class roots in this football club that are being stolen by idle ownership and continue to be ignored year after year, while individuals like you, like me, and like everybody else are being forced to pay the debt that has been incurred in the football club by these individuals. I know we could sit and we could talk for an hour about this, even longer, but how important is something like this protest for the fans, for the football club, for the players, for youngsters like Garnacho, and for smaller versions of you that are currently in Ukraine who see photographs of Wayne Rooney and photographs of the legends of these players, and that they want to progress towards something that resembles a morsel of what you have lived in your life? Just how important is this on Sunday?
Massively. I think me and you talked off camera, off record, about the strategies and what we think about everything. But I think strategies go out the window, and it's pure heart. And I don't want to say the word hatred because it's very, very strong, but what has been done to the club by a family is absolutely outrageous, and it's not fair. I think in my personal life, the one thing that gets me really, really, really annoyed, probably the only thing, is when there is lack of fairness and something is unjust. And the way that Glazers see United, it's an institution of 150 years nearly. The way they bled it dry is absolutely diabolical. And we can talk about sitting down and trying to reason with them and talk to them. There is no reasoning with them. For them, what matters is money, and is a dotted line, and how much they can make for them and for the future generations, that term of generational wealth. And that's what Glazers are, and that's typical. And again, I've got American friends. I don't want to talk about everyone, but that's what I've studied sports management, and they told us in America it's all about money. It's business. In Europe, the European sporting model and American sporting model, the European sporting model is about the integrity and sporting integrity, literally. And yeah, Sunday, I don't want to say he cannot get any bigger, because he can. The biggest moments in his not in the club's near future is going to be when we win this fight, and we will win this fight. But yeah, Sunday it is a massive occasion, and hopefully it's a it's the step, not the first one, but it's a step in the right direction, and another step, and the bigger step. And I hope that was each pass we can gather some momentum, and it's not a one-off, not protest, but an action, and it can get bigger, and more people can join it. Whether it's going to happen or not, I don't know, but I know everyone in the stadium resonates with it. Everyone wants them leeches out of the club. How do we do it? It has to come from the heart. It has to come from passion, because talking to them, as we found out for 20 odd years now, won't reach anything. So we have to find another way.
As you said, it's not the first, it's not going to be the last, but hopefully it's a building block for something greater. While that is going to take precedence on Sunday, there is going to be the small matter of a football game as well. It could go either way against an Arsenal side who have once again highlighted their undeniable ability to crumble at the optimum moment domestically. Mikel Arteta's side look like they are again without domestic silverware, following a solitary point collected against West Ham and Forest, and it now leaves a 13-point gap on Liverpool. So, very briefly, given the inevitable hostility that will be in and around Old Trafford on the day, how do you envisage this one playing out?
0-0.
0-0.
1-0 is probably the best we can get. 0-0 wouldn't be bad. I mean, 0-0 against West Ham for them 1-0. They've lost 1-0 to West Ham, and then Forest 0-0 last week for Arsenal, and then they go and beat PSV 7-1. So you would hope that coming back into the domestic competition, like even last year we were terrible when we played them. Right, we lost to Palace before, and you wouldn't expect anything, and we managed to make it not as bad as everyone expected it to be. So the expectation is we played on Thursday, they played a day earlier, 2 days earlier actually, and we're not going to be at the races, but hopefully we can just gather up and come up with a performance, and then get the momentum going from that and win next Thursday. But 1-0, I would take 1-0. What do you think?
I would happily take 1-0. But you have to look at it as well. The previous performance against Arsenal in the Cup offered plenty of positivity. And then you look at the performance against Liverpool and then the one against City. This side often get G'd up for it. And how amazing would it be, Ivan, if that did end up 1-0 thanks to a Diogo Dalot 90-minute winner?
Let's not get carried away. Because that would give him another contract. Then we'll have to... that would be like... I mean, I don't want to downplay it. Us winning the FA Cup last year was absolutely amazing, but also he kept Ten Hag in the job, and I think that hindered us massively. That would be a similar thing. 1-0, Diogo Dalot scoring, 3 points, brilliant, everyone's happy, and then Diogo Dalot signs another 5-year contract, and he stays here forever. Don't want that.
He's also the same guy who missed an open goal against West Ham that cost Ten Hag his job too, so we can't forget that one, Ivan.
Well, he should have missed a few during the pre-season, so maybe done the decision a bit quicker.
Ivan, my man, an absolute pleasure chatting with you today. If any of our listeners fancy a chat with you, what is the best way to get in touch?
Oh, I didn't expect you to ask me this. X, you follow me on X. If you repost, I think you posted the video. I think if anyone sees it there, I spend a lot of time on X, Instagram. If you put Ivan, and no one knows how to spell my surname. So yeah, X is probably the best way.
Brilliant. And as always, be sure and drop us a follow at theatre_of_red across every social, and hit subscribe wherever you're listening today. If you're feeling really kind, you might just consider leaving us a review to help accelerate the growth of the work that we do every single week. I'll be back to you next week to dissect Arsenal, Ruben Amorim, and whatever else should rear its head over the coming days. Have a safe weekend. Catch you all then.